We thought these would never see the light of day. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we will be counting down our picks for the top 10 video games that escaped development hell. For more gaming videos, check out our new spin-off channel, Mojo Plays, for in-depth reviews, thoughtful video essays, detailed character origins, and insightful commentary. Mojo Plays, games smarter. For this list, we're looking at video games that experienced a long and arduous development process, but were eventually released, for better or for worse. We will not be including games that are still technically in development, like Beyond Good and Evil 2, despite how much time it spent in development, because it hasn't quite escaped yet.
Show me the Redeemer.
Here you go, mate.
Number 10, L.A. Noire.
Homicide men are the right hand of God.
L.A. Noire was a hugely ambitious game for its time, mostly due to its unique use of motion scan, which allowed the developers to film an actor's face and transfer it into their digital counterpart.
Cole Phelps, Traffic. What have we got?
It's really acting a scene in two parts.
It was innovative and kinda creepy. Unfortunately, with ambition comes delays. Bondi began development in 2004, and it was originally going to be published by Sony before Rockstar picked it up in 2006. It then missed its 2008 release date, and the debut trailer wasn't released until 2010, 2 years after the game was already supposed to be out. It finally hit stores in May 2011, 7 years after it began development.
No good place. Pick up a shovel and a pick on the way.
Number 9, Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress 2 still remains popular and incredibly influential 10 years after its release, thanks to its whimsical gameplay and constant updates. We really can't imagine the modern gaming landscape without it, but we're lucky we even got it at all. It was originally unveiled way back at E3 1999, sporting a modern war aesthetic that was kinda similar to Call of Duty, complete with parachute drops and some very ambitious voice elements. It was then delayed due to Valve switching to the Source engine, and that was basically the last we heard of it for 6 years. It was finally reintroduced in 2006 with the cartoonish visual design it now has, and the game was released in October 2007, 8 years after it was shown at E3. Number 8, Kirby's Return to Dreamland. Remind us to never travel with Kirby because we'd probably be dusty skeletons by the time we ever got where we were going. Kirby first began his return to Dreamland in the year 2000. The game was eventually showcased at E3 2005 with a multiplayer component and gameplay similar to its predecessor. However, this version was soon completely scrapped, along with 2 succeeding builds, due to the difficulty of making said multiplayer. After years of silence, it was finally shown at E3 2011 as Kirby Wii, and was released that October, 11 years after it began development. Granted, it was pretty good, but 11 years? A lot of people could have made their own game in that time. Number 7, The Last Guardian. The Last Guardian was announced as the next project by Fumito Ueda, the director of Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, so the hype was insanely high from the get-go. Unfortunately, it was plagued with so many issues that many began to question if they'd ever see it. The team began work on the game in 2007, and it was showcased at E3 2009. However, the problems then began to occur, including difficulties in working with the PS3 hardware, the departure of Ueda from Sony, and then changing development from the PS3 to the PS4. It was finally released in 2016, although many agree that the nearly 10-year development showed in its somewhat dated performance. Number 6, Final Fantasy 15. The Final Fantasy 15 we know today wasn't even going to be a main entry in the series. It was originally slated to be a spin-off, Final Fantasy Versus 13, and development began in 2006. However, this version was entirely scrapped and forgotten around 2012. Focus was then switched from the PS3 to the PS4. The engine was completely reworked, and the development team was shifted around. Well, that was 6 years of work down the drain. The game began again from scratch and eventually released in 2016. So, now that it's over, can we get Kingdom Hearts 3?
It's a real mystery.
Number 5. Aliens, Colonial Marines. Alright, so full disclosure, we would have been totally okay if this one stayed in development hell. A new Alien game was announced in 2006, but what followed was a huge mess, which resulted in the game's delay. Sega got wind that developer Gearbox was putting their employees to work on Borderlands, despite receiving payments for work on Colonial Marines. This led to layoffs in 2008 and the temporary cancellation of that game. Work eventually started up again, but was outsourced to other developers to make up for Gearbox's incompetence. After numerous delays, the game was rushed to market in 2013, 7 years after its initial announcement, and, well, we all know how that turned out.
Top of the gravity well! That'll put us right next to the cargo base!
Number 4. Doom 2016.
On the edge of discovery. A powerful technology with infinite possibilities.
On the flip side, we're really glad that Doom, formerly Doom 4, was finally released. Lead developer John Carmack hinted at the 4th entry at QuakeCon 2007, and it was officially announced in 2008. It was originally going to be a cinematic and action-packed experience kinda similar to Call of Duty, but it suffered from mismanagement and a lack of direction, and started over from scratch in 2011. Carmack then left id Software in 2013 for Oculus VR. A teaser trailer for the final product was finally revealed at E3 2014, and the game released 2 years later to stellar reviews. Man, it kicked ass. Number 3. Mother 3. Development for Mother 3 began in 1994 for the SNES in Japan. However, the development team grew too ambitious for that console and switched development to the N64. Turns out, they were still a little too ambitious, as the game couldn't fit on the N64 either, so they scaled it down and planned to release it on the 64DD, which was a Japanese expansion for the N64. The game was eventually cancelled in the year 2000, before work began again in 2003 for the Game Boy Advance. It was finally released in 2006, 12 years after development began and after going through 4 consoles on its way to release. Now that's gotta be frustrating, right? Number 2. Duke Nukem Forever.
I'm back, baby.
Duke Nukem Forever is the poster child for games stuck in development hell, and its story is well known within the gaming community. Too bad it turned out to be so bleh. The game was officially announced in 1997, complete with promotional material. However, constant delays and radio silence soon caused interest to rapidly deteriorate. 3D Realms then downsized and lost Duke's developers, and the publishers even sued the company for its failure to produce the game. Duke Nukem Forever finally went gold in May 2011, 14 years after it was originally announced. Too bad interest in the series was long gone by that point, and yeah, it sucked too.
Hail to the king, baby.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Number 1. Grimoire, Heralds of the Winged Exemplar. Holy crap, did people ever think this was never going to happen? Granted, the final product is mediocre, but they pulled it off nonetheless. Grimoire was developed by one guy, Cleveland Mark Blakemore, who began work on it in 1993. Yep, 1993. Some of you weren't even born yet. He then announced that the game would release in 1997, but of course it never did. Blakemore started an Indiegogo campaign in 2010, asking for $250,000. He raised a little over $10,000, but not one to give it up. Blakemore finally completed his game and released it in August of 2017, nearly 25 years after development began. Now that is either what you call dedication or procrastination. Maybe both. Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo and subscribe for new videos every day.